Good evening. It's Monday and it's always Airfix and Chill. So if you're on your workbench, turn the volume up because we've got a really good guest on this evening. We've gone for the trio, or the trinity, I should say, from IPMS. We've had Andy and we had I've just lost his name. I had it written down.
Rich.
Rich. We had Richard on, who organises Scale Model World, and now we have the treasurer of IPMS UK, John, in. Nice welcome to you, John.
Thank you for having me.
He contacted me a few weeks back. Unfortunately, it was just the timing. With the Airfix launch, we always seem to, hover over that as a channel and as a group of us. We had the live stream as well with the range launch. Here comes Alex in as well, and so finally tonight we're able to get John in. So as you know, he's the treasurer. Do you want to explain your role in IPMS, if that's okay, so people get a feel?
Okay. So I think the title treasurer kind of comes from originally when this was very much the original club with some members scattered around the country. Back to the days of I joined in 1977, and I went to my first nationals, as some of us still call it. And the nationals were a room upstairs in Hendon, the Royal Air Force Museum.
Wow.
And it still had that feel back then of being a touch of, the local gardening club type of structure and so on. And of course, I guess administering the money was quite simple because people sent checks and it was all checked. And the main expense was trying to keep the magazine going, which was like a black and white affair on what we might call just ordinary copier paper, and paying for that room and for a few trophies. Now, obviously, it's grown massively. And along the way, we've had a couple of two significant bumps in the road, should we say, on the money side before my time. And it is a while ago. But as it grew and the show grew, and then traders started to attend and more money was coming in, a couple of the major bumps were there was a sudden realization that we should have been registered for VAT because we'd exceeded the turnover. And there was a fine. Backdated VAT had been paid. Another one was we should have been incorporated as a company because we should have paid corporation tax. Another bump in the road. So it highlights the fact that this is a company now. And I know for probably the vast majority of the 5,000 odd members, it's still a club and it has a great show.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, it's operating as a company. We are subject to the laws, company law. So I'm a director. I'm registered at Companies House. That's why we have Articles of Association, because we're a company just like any other company. We are limited by guarantee, so there are no shareholders as such. And we are a not-for-profit organisation, which is quite important because that classification helps us with our VAT. It's not exactly a concession, but it does actually give us an opportunity to limit the VAT we have to pay, in particular on subscriptions.
Yeah.
And when you start to add that up, this is more like being the chief financial officer than a treasurer.
Wow.
You're not running a little book and noting who's paid their subs this week kind of thing, which is more akin to, I guess, our branches. Some of our branches run subs, etc., to pay for their location, etc. So, as I said, we are all of us on the committee. We are all directors. We have all got director responsibilities. We are all culpable if we breach company law in some way. You can't duck out of it. It's collective responsibility, and it's a serious business.
Wow.
Because every year we go through agony after each Scale Model World, because we have to start working out how have we done, and that's me, because I do the accounts, I do the books. We run accounts now on an electronic package, We have accountants too. We don't have an audit. Some people talk about this. We do not have an audit of our accounts. We have the accountants prepare the corporation tax return. We don't need to have an audit because there are laws about the size of us we are deemed in tax purposes a micro entity, and as such we're exempted. So we don't have it. But our accountants look over them and they make sure there's no major errors, and principally they prepare a corporation tax return. So what do I do through the year? Through the year, most of it is I'm doing invoicing as traders come in. I don't know if any of you have seen me at the show. I do go around now, as opposed to just sitting at a desk late on Sunday afternoon, a queue that used to be about 50 long, but I've kind of headed that off by being proactive going around. The queue's now shrunk massively. We moved to credit card payments, etc., to get rid of. We used to have bucket loads of cash to the point my predecessor had to have G4S coming at a regular time to actually put cash away. It was too much just to have there, especially when you go back to the old days of the kit swap. 30 grand would come in and go out over the weekend. Never mind me taking money from traders. So most of the year I'm dealing with trader invoicing, collecting it. I'm paying off payments for the magazine, distribution, production, sorting out the insurance, which you mentioned. In fact, I've had the emails today for our renewal that goes out and covers all of our members if they go attend other shows, never mind our shows. So that's about it. Now, when it comes down specifically to the show, I basically run a kind of a model on where are we going. So taking into everything account, what are we spending? How much have things gone up? Ultimately, out of that drops, what can we do on the pricing front for the traders? We have two income streams. So when you talk about the show, because obviously the members are all getting free, but the income streams are traders paying for a pitch and public entry. So I'm sure you've all seen that go to the show, the public queuing, and they get an hour after you. The vast majority of those are pre-booked, and the International Centre manage that. They run the website. It's their system. If anybody goes in and buys an advance ticket, it's actually on their system, and they charge us for that. And then we do, despite the fact that we advertise even in the press, we do not do sales on the door. We do, because if someone turns up with real money, we're not going to turn it away. But we don't want the days of a massive queue of people trying to pay on the door, and then getting a lot of frustrations of people because they're stuck in a queue for an hour trying to give us the money, etc. That's why it's pitched that way, which sounds a little bit converse, because I think last time, this 24, the advert had written across the front, no payment on the door. But as I said, it's important because we're trying to get you all in. And it's a massive queue. You've all been out. I'm sure you've been out in the cold as well on the wrong day when it goes out the front door. There is one privilege of having a yellow shirt. You get in.
Well, it's the same. I remember going to Tank Fest at Bovington, and it must have been 35 minutes to get in. And you're right by the door, so you can imagine the queue. At least you've got some stay when you get
that foyer area, down past the Costa and the toilets, essentially.
You go up and down a few times, so it's definitely one of them. But interesting that you say it's a company, because I honestly thought it was some sort of cooperative. I thought because it's the way I look, because the IPMS is the International Plastic Models Society.
Yes,
I was assuming cooperative society. That I didn't realize it was run as a non-profitable business. Is there, if all this, with everything that you're doing, is there another option? So you weren't a business that would be?
Well, that was some time ago, and that's if you're trading in any form, you have to do it in a legal structure. So there are lots of people, and they're effectively self-employed. I'm sure. I don't know if some of you are, or any other viewers, any other people on this. But I'm pretty. We're all aware of people that are self-employed, and typically it might be your local plumber, a sparky, whatever. And then some people we running literally as a legal entity, as a company, and it's all about having a structure under which, sadly, you have to pay tax.
Yeah.
Bottom line, it's got to be legalized. It's got to be accounted for, and the government wants to see that. How are you going to give us what we're supposed to get? So self-employed people, they have a structure on how they do their tax returns. As a company, we do an annual corporation tax return, and then I have to pay it. It's appropriate, that is. And every 3 months I have to do a VAT return. Usually I'm paying them. Sometimes they pay me, because in the course of the year we can have expenditures, and the expenditures mean, and it's the show, beg your pardon, it's the time of the show. The show, when I pay for the halls, we're talking about a payment in the £70,000 to £80,000 mark. VAT, that is significant. So in one quarter, that way exceeds the takings through that quarter, and we actually get a refund. But at the end of the year, I then have to do a VAT calculation on the membership subscriptions. Now, you don't see when you subscribe, when you pay, either you might go online, I don't know, you might send in a check. There are still people that send in checks, or you might pay at a show, but all those payments are subject to VAT. But we have an agreement that allows us, and it's legal, that we can reduce that a bit. But at the end of the day, that's a calculation at the end of the year, and we actually tender the VAT for your membership subs for the entire year on the last quarter. So that's usually quite a significant payment.
Yeah. Wow.
At any point in time, we can have £150,000 to £200,000 in the bank.
Yeah.
And now, obviously, a lot of that is money that's been paid by traders, and a lot, and from you in subs, which is going to be used to do the magazine. When you subscribe, you give us a full payment, but it takes us a year to work that off effectively in delivering your membership. And we use the magazine as the markers, that every time we issue a magazine, we say we've delivered 1/6 of what you paid us, and that's how we have to. And that's, believe it or not, there is a inland revenue VAT instruction on exactly how you calculate for memberships, etc., etc., etc. No stone is unturned in collecting tax. Trust me.
It's weird, isn't it? Because you would have thought you could say it's a donation, but tax. The government want their share.
If any of you are National Trust members, there's VAT on your membership.
It's amazing, isn't it?
There is actually a VAT notice. If you're ever bored and you want to Google it, rather than sticking needles in your eyes that day, there's actually a specific VAT instruction which details for the National Trust exactly how they should work out what benefit you're getting, what is vatable, what isn't vatable. So they go to a similar exercise. They have to do all the calculations, etc.
Wow.
When we say not for profit, that is a specific legal definition, and that is we cannot distribute profits to the members. So it requires, if you look in our articles, specifically should at some point in the future the society be dissolved, wound up, then any residual monies must be passed to a similar organization that is benefiting the community in a similar way. It would not be divided up amongst the members. Now, if you were a shareholder in a company and the company's wound up, the assets are distributed to the shareholders. So by declaring not for profit, that's a very important point. We've just been through, or rather I have just been through quite a lengthy exercise on the VAT status. And that was an important point that we had it in our articles.
Yeah.
So this is not modelling, unfortunately, but it's what makes the show go round. Not the world, maybe, but the show. And it has to be done.
Incredible. Well, there you go.
Not unsurprisingly, every time a treasurer stands for election, there's no competition.
No, you've got to be in it to win it, haven't you? On that one, I'll tell you, you've really got to want to be passionate about it. So that gives me the question: is why do you do it? Because you don't get paid for it, but you're doing an employable job, basically.
Well, before this, you might not recall, I was membership secretary. And how did I get there? That's because if you remember Abby, the late Abby, who was membership sec, when she took over, I happened to be at the AGM. And when she was taking it over, she said, look, there's a lot to do. Would someone help me with the direct debits on membership? And sometimes you get a bit carried away, don't you? And you get enthusiastic. So I stuck my hand up. And so I then took over and did all the direct debits. And then when the membership sec went cliff, I moved up a rung, should we say, and became membership. I'm not quite sure. I just thought, okay, I'll do it. I'll become membership. And then I was finishing because I thought I'd actually like to build some models. And Mark Hill, the previous treasurer, had said he'd done 8 years, and he said, that's enough.
Yeah.
And it was painfully obvious there was no one around. No one was coming forward. So I said, all right, I'll do it. Now, in taking it on, I then started to do a few changes, etc., and so on. I think largely they're done, but we came up again, and I have gone forward to be re-elected. My term's up in May, but I have put myself forward. I don't think there's anyone else, again, not unsurprisingly, who has stood. But I think if I do it another 2 years, that'll be it. It's got to be it.
Yeah,
that will be then. I think that's 6 years for me, and the stash just is not going down.
No, it's difficult to pay. It's difficult to build models when you're doing calculations. I get that.
It can take. It can be time consuming.
Yeah. I've got a few questions here that I've written down.
Far away.
We clear it, and then I'll open it up to the panel. And then if anybody has any questions in the chat, remember question in capitals or QQQ, and then we save it. We star them and we save them up, and then we do like a mass from the chat. So, IPMS UK is part of IPMS Worldwide. What came first?
IPMS UK.
And then basically other people took the
yes,
and then went around the world with it. Yeah.
No, I wasn't involved in as it if you like, from how it grew, but at some point, and I'm not quite sure where, it was formalised so that if they wanted to call themselves IPMS, they request a charter. And Gary Wenko, he's standing down now, he was overseas liaison, and his predecessors would get I've forgotten what the numbers are, but there's a prereq for if you want to form one, how many people you got, etc., and so on. Will you say that you'll abide by the principles of the IPMS and so on? And then on the basis that they do, they get a charter, and then they can stick IPMS in front.
Yeah. Fantastic.
There has been a little hiccup with Australia because a group of modelers in Australia some time ago got a charter, but they kind of kept it to themselves. So effectively, they were operating as a local branch and called as IPMS Australia, and then we got a request from like another part of Australia saying, "Look, we just can't get in." Almost like it's in Sydney, and because we don't live in Sydney, they say we can't join, kind of thing. So, I'm not sure how Gary actually resolved that, and of course France. Well, probably best we leave France because. I think at one point there was two parts of France taking each other to court. But...
Wow.
Well, yeah.
When you say charter, it just reminds me of Sons of Anarchy and bikers in America. It's like we got the American and we got the Irish and we got it's brilliant. I asked a few folks for some questions, and one of them I thought it's a brilliant question, and I've saved it for you. To be a member? Is it worth being an IPMS member with the free entrance to scale model worlds? So, say for instance, if there was no, if say for instance, you now decided that everybody pays 30 quid for scale model world, would it be worth being an IPS member because of it? That's the question.
Okay, so the quick, easy one is that has to come down to the individual. Okay. What actually happens is, because I was membership set, I actually did, because some time ago we went on to Member Mojo. This is the online system, when you renew. Yeah. So up until then, the membership list was very ad hoc. It was in spreadsheets and so on and so forth. But once we went on Mojo, I did a kind of analysis of all the data and started to see the members that were a member 1 year, then not a member, and then a member. So it was pretty obvious that we had a churn of people leaving and coming and leaving and coming. So it wasn't too difficult to work out why, really. And that was proven in the COVID, because in COVID we lost straight away over 1,000 members.
Wow. So
we went, I forgot what the exact numbers were. It must have been about 4.5 to 3.5, something like that. And the magazine was still coming out. So it wasn't like that had stopped as well. So you were still getting your magazine. So obviously whoever they were, they didn't particularly value the magazine. Local meetings weren't permitted. So it could be that, for them, the local meeting was important, but you couldn't go to that. So what's the point in having a membership? If that's what you got your membership for. Now, if you're going to ask me personally, why am I a member? Because of build models, and this is the society that people at build models belong to.
Yeah.
And so if there was no show, I'd still be a member, I think. I think I would be,
Yeah.
Now, if the magazine stopped and we got some interesting feedback on the survey that took place, I've got that so over a year now, isn't it? A year and a half, maybe.
A year and a half ago, yeah.
And there were some people that openly admitted that they had no interest in the magazine. They solely did it for the show. And A, it gets you in for 2 days. B, it gets you in at 9 as well.
Yeah.
And that's and you can see the appeal, because if you were paying on the door, it's not that much more to become a member. It's 32 now for a single person, I think. And on the door payment last year was £28 a day. So that's a bit of a no-brainer if you work those days.
Yeah.
Yeah. But as I said, it comes down to the individual. If you're talking about it on a money front only, then it makes sense to be a member if you want to go to the show. And if you don't want to go to the show on the money front, I guess it doesn't make sense. But it's as I said, down to the individual.
Go on, Alex. Do you want to jump in with that question? That's bloody good. I like that question. You ask it if you want. Don't be quiet.
I guess it kind of follows on. Sorry, I'm late. I was late.
That's for you. Crack on, mate.
Just popped in, and happy birthday, Moss.
Thank you.
And welcome, John. And no, thanks for being here. I appreciate it. It's not easy being the money guy and having to go and get questioned by a bunch of modelers. But yeah, there is that question, and we've discussed it here on Airfix and Chill. I've put it on my channel a number of times. Is why does the IPMS continue to produce a very costly, because we all see the costs in the membership, in the accounts, magazine, 4 to 6 times a year for all members, all of the postage and everything, when a lot of people would either don't see value in it at all, or perhaps would just prefer to see it in a digital form, which of course would be much, much cheaper. And you mentioned it being a business. For me, coming from business, it makes perfect sense as both a cost reduction and a, if you like, satisfaction increase for the membership.
This is where I'm going to get in trouble, I expect, when we have our next committee meeting. Right. The magazine has been an emotive matter. It is the only means of regular communication to all our members. There is a body of members that do not have any other form of access to us. Now, my background is business. I worked in telecommunications, making your little mobile phones work. I used to manage building the networks and upgrading them and so on. And everything was around what's the bottom line. I don't mean the phone line, I mean the money line. You know, what's the budget? Is there a payback, and so on and so forth. So sometimes I get a bit too focused that way when we're in committee about the bottom line. And the side of it, because I've just gone through with you, you know, we're a company, tax, the lot, all this stuff. But there is a flip side, and that is we are a society in spirit. We might be a company, but we're a society in spirit of a bunch of people that do like sniffing glue. Sorry, I mean making multi. Yeah? And that's the bottom line. And this is only water, by the way.
But I guess the follow-up to that is, and I completely get the point about the, you know, let's call them legacy members who don't have the internet. Just going through house purchase, well, it's been going on for far too long, but having had my mother have to fill in a bunch of forms from a solicitor, and she's like a 4-hour drive away, has no email. Obviously, the solicitor's just thought, well, we'll email it. Well, my mother doesn't have an email address. She would have no idea how to do it. So completely get that, but why not just make it opt-in?
Sorry, why not make
a physical copy of the magazine? Just like, do you want to receive a physical copy of the magazine? Tick, you've catered for those members who have that, and for everybody else, because let's face it, if you are, I mean, I'm no spring chicken. I'm a Gen Xer. Almost all my communication is electronic. Right? So anybody, let's say, younger than 50 or younger is going to be predominantly 99% of the communication is going to be electronic. So again, looking at the future of society,
I'm completely with you.
Why not, you know, still keep the physical magazine for those, as I say, I call them legacy members, and those who just want that. For me, I mean, I was a member of the IPMS last year. I received the magazines. I read one specifically for the purposes of saying that I've read it, so I can say I read it. I saw no value in it as a personal modeler. Now, I appreciate it's a personal choice, but I know a lot of people feel that same way, and that's a lot of money, which is just that could be used for other things, right? For the society, for the betterment of modeling, for outreach, for models for heroes, whatever it is. So I'm just wondering what obviously that's not a financial decision, but there is a financial argument to push the committee for that, and obviously the IPMS has been talking about modernizing stuff. So just wondering if you can comment on, you know, what the potential movements in that, and would the IPMS look at, you know, say a restricted distribution of a physical copy and an electronic distribution for as the standard, if you like.
Well, Alex, I think you've led me into a question that could get me hung later on. But
yeah, I'm feel free to point them at me and say it was my fault.
You won't be in the committee meeting. All right.
It wasn't meant to be a bear trap. Sorry, John.
First of all, I happen to also be a member of, it's now called the Great War Aviation Society, but I think we all remember it's Cross and Cockade. And Cross and Cockade have implemented, and they have 1,000 members approximately, the system you're talking about. Because I renewed mine. Their membership works literally on calendar year. You know, you no matter when you join in the year, you get the back mags, and then you still have to renew in January, kind of thing. And they've introduced it where you can opt in to just digital or both, if you feel that way inclined, and so on. Now, this has been mooted. The point about giving up paper completely is that there are, and this is what I call working to the lowest common denominator, should we say, that there are people that only have paper communications. And I think I'm safe in replaying this anecdote. Okay, and when I was membership, you may remember we had to implement and get everybody to agree to GDPR. It's done automatically if you do it online. You can't get past renewal unless you tick the box saying yes, I agree to you keeping my details. There was a load of direct debit people. Of course, there's no communication because every year comes up, we just take the money. So we haven't got a way of saying to them. So we had to write to all of those and get them to fill out a form. And we put an article, more than one, I think. It carried on for a while after I finished his membership. And Doug Hughes, who was membership at the time, had to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. The most embarrassing bit was we had a few life members that just didn't seem to get around to saying it was okay. But eventually, we had a letter from a member who said, I note that I'm supposed to fill out a form. Am I supposed to download this from something? Because I cannot, because I do not have one of those stupid computer things. My first thought was, you're missing out on so much if you don't. I don't know about you, but the first place I go is I go to Google when I want to walk around the standard D25, which I did an hour ago, and so on. But there are some out there, and that's also explains why we get checks still sent to us for membership. And I'm not decrying it. Some people may not agree with the digital age. They may not believe in, that it's safe to use a credit card or whatever else it is. And we have to respect those wishes. And so doing away completely with a paper form of communication is not really viable until, sadly, now I happen to be 71. But I was lucky because I went into IT when there were computers. Etc. and so on. So I've lived with it since I was working, kind of thing. So I'm quite happy, like you, Alex. Everything's digital, everything's electronic, everything I do. But there are people, and I've got friends that are hesitant about going near an email, etc. and so on. And because there's so much cons going on through it that we have to accept. The society side says we should help those people. So there has to be some form of paper communication. Now, trying to save money on that, yes, if you get a significant number of people that say go digital only, they'll opt out, like you said. But one of the things, if you've had anything printed, one of the things you encounter is this, and I encountered this when I was membership, I used to have to order the new cards. So once a year, we order several thousand of the membership cards. And I was trying to work out how many do we need? Because you don't want to overbuy, but on the other hand, you don't get caught and run out. And I asked, what about if I ordered 4,000, I think it was. And then I said, later on, I need another 500. And it was nearly the same price. Because the bulk of the printing is in the setup of the job. And then after that, it's kind of like, well, how many more do you want? Because it's peanuts after that. So we have this thing about trying to work out exactly how many we do, but it's not as simple as saying, well, let's suppose half the society say I'll have digital. It won't cost. If you're lucky, you might get a quarter off, let's say.
But then the main cost will actually be postage.
Sorry, Alex.
I was saying, but then you will also have a much higher fixed cost in postage, which does scale very well.
It does almost scale exactly, because they also price it a bit on the fact that they've got to set the jobs up. They use machines for it, so there's a setup time, then a run time, and material time, and the postage. The postage is obviously the biggest bit. I mean, it's going up. It's just scary how much postage is now. I got shocking me life. I bought some first class stamps. God, what mine?
Well, what I mean, was it 1990? It was 25p for a first class stamp, wasn't it? And now it's like £2. And the different sizes now,
you get a bigger stamp now.
Well, like I said,
yeah, above inflation rise, isn't it?
Yeah. So I'm glad you asked the question, actually, because it is not a closed matter in the committee, by the way. It's an open matter about should be thinking about going to a digital form. Yeah. Our magazine doesn't really have a how can I put it? It doesn't have a furthest value. All right. So if you take, for example, Sam, Phoenix, any of these magazines, their danger is that their digital form gets out and then is distributed free.
Yeah.
And I've actually seen them. I've seen it on a particular website, loads of them. So what's happening there is that it's getting devalued. It's getting devalued in the sense that people are going, I'm not going to buy it because, if I go on a certain website, I can actually rip it off.
Yeah.
Now, we don't have that problem, I don't think, with our magazine. So I don't think we should be too concerned on that front at all. I don't think personally, I don't think it's a factor that should come into it at all. The idea that pirate copies could get to non-IPMS members. Yeah.
I think it would actually be a bonus if there is a digital copy of the magazine. You could actually freely circulate it as advertising for the society.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I think it depends on, again, I have my own personal views about, the IPMS looking at, well, what is it for in a modern age compared to, the 1970s, for instance, or even the 80s and 90s when, I kind of restarted. But, that kind of, if it demonstrated, if you like say, the spirit of modeling, as you were saying, the benefits of modeling, the mental health stuff and all that, and the SIGs and stuff that you could only get as a benefit from the IPMS, if you remember, talking about the SIGs, having an article by SIG members, those kinds of things to demonstrate that value, I think would actually be quite valuable.
Yeah.
Well, all I can say in conclusion on that, you can carry on it if you want, but I would say what I'd conclude it with is this: it is an open matter with the committee. It comes up, and there are varying views. I've given you my one, which is we ought to do it. Okay, and there are other committees members that have a similar thought. It's about getting round to it, starting to implement the idea of opting in, opting out, how we manage that, are there any implications, walking through the whole thing, etc. I had quite a good relationship with actually the membership secretary in Cross and Cockade, Andy Kemp, and I actually did ping him not so long ago and said, could we have a sesh sometime where you go through, so you've implemented it, how's it going? What considerations did you put in when you decided to do it?
Just want to. I've seen this from both angles. As I said, I've got my father is elderly, hated laptops. Gave him an iPad for his birthday. He's the world's his oyster now. Everything, motorcycle news, everything's on his iPad. He loves it. But then it was brute force. So I gave him that iPad and said, here you go. And now he does his medication online. And actually he's found that whereas before there's a lot of societies and clubs now that will not take cash, will not take check. You've got to do it through a bank transfer. This idea of handing over, they've started to say, no, we have to do papers out, digitals in. And some people have said, well, I can't be a member then. It's like, well, so what? Yeah, tough. If you can't, and they've had to force themselves down that route to pay it. It's harsh. And I totally agree. It's like Steve Jobs once said that they have the best technology in the world to write what you're saying with a pen on a screen, and it would transcribe it into digital. And then they realize, why are we spending all this money when the generation that don't do keyboards will basically die, and then it all comes through that people are now using a keyboard. So, that sort of realm. But I do feel that what's been brought up is that the magazine, I do read it. I like the articles that are in it that explain things. Like we had one, there was like a 2-parter about roundels. Fascinating. One of the best articles I've read about the roundels, about the symbols that are on the side, but we don't get enough of it. A lot of it is just, it's a picture of a model and then, or pictures of models at a show, and then a lot of bump about IPMS. I don't know whether that's what people find, that it doesn't suit them as something to read. Maybe there could be something more added to it. Maybe some more article writers, more information, more history. But yeah, and to be fair, was it 30, 40 pages? It is what it is, isn't it? It's about IPMS and pictures of models. Maybe there's something there that could be that people embrace the magazine and have more targeted articles and stuff.
Yeah, you have to remember that the magazine is only as good as what members are prepared to write. So Dave Berryman, the editor, sometimes has got, it's difficult for him. He was going to keep a balanced magazine. Personally, I look and I read articles where they actually explain a bit about how they managed to do that. And there are some articles that are just pictures and then a write-up about the subject. Not in fact, I better get careful here. There's been a few where there isn't even a mention who made the kit, what manufacturer it was, and it was in an area that I didn't know, and I just thought I'd just like to know who actually makes that kit.
I mean, I think this is also true. I mean, you mentioned, things like Sam, and there's lots of, again, I'll use the word legacy because it seems polite. Classic maybe has also been suggested in the chat, but companies that, I mean, in the 90s, I wasn't subscribed to any magazines, but I used to, one of the highlights of the month was, when military modeling came out, when Sam came out, when you go to WH Smith's, have they got it in? Yes, they have, and that would be great. That would be your weekend, looking through the articles. Are there any techniques I can do there? What kits are coming out? Because that was the source of information. Whereas now, that just like legacy media, the numbers have tailed off massively because of, this platform, YouTube, the internet in general. You can get most of that information, like you said, John. You can do walkarounds. I did the old AMT XB70, and the example that's in, I think it's the National Air Force Museum in the US. There's a 360-degree cockpit view. You can go like you're sitting in the cockpit and get, I mean, for the detail, it's fantastic. So you don't need a reference book. You can sit in the actual, thing as though you were there.
Oh, that's their own. Well, that's the ones they put on their own website, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's
before you even get the people that have been.
Full tri-motor, exactly. I couldn't believe the amount of info I could get out.
Yeah. So, so magazines, I think, in general, have been struggling to find their relevance, if you like, in the 21st century, or at least the last 15, 20 years. So again, I think perhaps that's a point for the committee meeting as, what is the IPMS magazine for? That goes into that, if you like. I'm trying to swing it to the treasury side, that then makes it possible to make it perhaps more cost effective, and actually as both an advertising and a hook for IPMS membership in general.
If you take it at two levels, like number one is, should there be a magazine? Because some people have said, I'm not interested in the magazine. Then it is the only regular vehicle for communicating to all of the membership. So the fact there should be something, I think the committee thinks, well, there has to be. Okay. On the question of the digital, it's open. It gets raised, and this is very useful because it's been brought up again. And we've got a meeting in February, and I'll just ask, can we put this firmly on the agenda now and say, do we do an evaluation? And well, what you need is something like, what we need is a straw poll, sample poll of who would opt into digital. Now, does that infer to you that you're going to get a reduction in your membership?
So I would, at this point, John, I'll formally offer my services as a consultant to the IPMS I'm not cheap. But I mean, most of my background in the last 20 years has been in business improvement, a lot of Kaizen, Kanban, that kind of stuff. And I think one of the things, and I've mentioned this in videos again, is as a committee, I think the question that needs to be asked is, why are we doing this for every single thing that the IPMS does? Because that's the single most important thing, and we talked about the membership quite a lot. You talked quite a lot about the membership, which I think is absolutely right. But like the magazine, it's just like, why are we doing it? The fact that we've done it before and always done it is not a reason. And I've said this, I got myself into a lot of trouble in leadership members in the past. It's just like, just because you've always done something doesn't mean it's not incredibly stupid, right? There's a great website called despair.com that does some great posters on that sort of stuff. But once you've decided, like you said, well, actually we should have, because there are a number of reasons, it focuses you down on what the reasons are, right? Regular communication with members, and whatever those reasons are. And then you build around that rather than coming from your existing structure and trying to pick the bones out of it and say, well, we need a straw poll. It's like, you can only poll, one, the membership, which you have, which then automatically means that you're biased, your population. Secondly, those that respond. So you can't have a vote. If you had it like in Australia, where you have to vote, then you get a true opinion. If you have it like we had in our last election, most of the people in the country don't want a Labour government. Most of the people in the country don't want a Conservative government. Most of the people in the country didn't vote. So, you have to take some of those things into consideration, I think. But yes, I am available for consultation if needed.
On the voting, have you read Jean-Jacques Rousseau? He was inspirational for the French Revolution. You should read that about.
Yes.
You have to vote. You will be forced to be free. Sorry, we're digressing into philosophy now.
People don't appreciate the value of a vote. I can agree with
that. Okay, all I can say is I will raise it again and say, look, we need to actually do this as a proper program to evaluate how we implement it, and the big question would be, as I said, will people want a reduced membership because they're not getting a hard copy? So if any of you want to look, you can go onto the Great War Aviation Society's website, and if you go on there and you say I'm going to subscribe, you will get all the options and the different pricing depending on whether you're having digital or not. They've based it around that you pay for your magazine and either version, then you pay depending on what you've chosen for your postage, which I think is one way of putting it.
Yeah.
And as I said, I'm trying to get a chat to their membership set to see how that is working. Is there pushback? Yeah.
Do you feel that as members we pay enough as treasurer?
Yeah, you do. The membership is more than enough to cover everything we do outside of running Scale Model World. So as a company, we are split as far as the government's concerned into one side which is deemed to be mutual trading. That's the membership side. And the mutual trade is you pay a subscription, you get a magazine, and you also get the insurance cover. And that's done with what you've given us, etc. That side of it, that money doesn't go off and do other clever things. And now the other side of it is then a trading side, which is Scale Model World, which is where traders pay us, public pay us, we pay all the bills with that money, and we actually show a profit and loss on that side. And that side then is subject to corporation tax. We haven't made a good profit for a while, but when we did make a decent profit, and if I go back to 2019, so the last one before COVID, the profit was about 15,000, and that was subject to 3K in corporation tax. We haven't had that luxury, I'm afraid, since COVID. In fact, we've had significant losses to the point where we've been able to because of COVID, we were allowed to look back 3 years and reclaim. This is normally in business, you can go back 1 year. So if you make a profit 1 year, pay tax, following year make a loss, you can actually get some tax from the previous year back. Okay. And with COVID, they allowed you to look back 3 years. So for a couple of years after COVID, where we made technically a trading loss, we actually managed to drag money back that we'd had to pay in tax. So that improved the position on the profit and loss for scale model.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally. Yeah, it was just
boring stuff, isn't it?
Well, it's not. It's because like when I was really shocked that when I got the account, we talked about it on here that actually it was the traders who pay for Scale Model World. Okay,
so if we want to, because I know Alex has got a particular question, I'm sure, about the pricing for traders.
Yeah,
he did his analysis, and I'm happy to answer that. When we work out the pricing for the traders, sorry, when I say we, I mean me. Well, a few years ago, after I'd just taken over, there was the meeting which was, okay, so what's the prices going to be for next year? Because obviously, as we go into the show, we have to have the pricing for the following year to get people to say if they want to book for the following year and so on. And it seemed a bit ad hoc. It was kind of like, well, it was almost like add a tenner there, add 20 there, and whatever. And I said, wait a minute, you can't do it like this. You got to have some kind of a model. What are you working out? What your total take's going to be, and is it going to balance the books for the show and so on and so forth? So I put together like a business model and did it based on what the traders are, that typically the pattern of traders. Because you might get 20 of one kind of pitch and then 5 of another and so on. And therefore, in the model, if we assume that's the pattern of traders, that's how many we get of each one. What would the pricing be for each of those pitches? What will be the end result? What's the sum at the bottom? That's how much you're going to make. And the way I did it was, and it's worked kind of okay, is that we take the amount that we're going to pay for the halls. So next year, that's about 85,000. That will be higher actually, because that's without the Ludlow suite, which is where we had the competition.
Yeah.
So that was added on this last year, 24. And the current, that 85k is without it, so that'll go up a bit on the, because we want the Ludlow. I think everybody's agreed having the competition out in that separate room was far better than it being in one of the main halls. So I take that as being what we're going to have to shell out, and the way I work it is the trader takings have to match that, and then the public entry, which is our other revenue stream, is what pays for all the ancillaries. And so you got to pay for the tables, easily close to 10k. You got to pay for security. You got to pay for the fact that we have to pay for have the tickets for public entry paid for, collected. The online system. That's £3 each ticket, right?
Okay.
So so when you pay 25, or you don't, you pay £25 to get in. You book online. £3 is going to tick, right? So and I'm doing a little aside there. One idea that's mooted was, why don't we? Because not every member comes. This is a fact. They might come one year, not the other. Well, why don't we drop back and say members now pay, but reduce the membership fee? All right, because that would be equitable. Yeah, that means because another idea that was mooted was, why don't we start subsidising the show with the membership fees?
Yeah.
Now, I've got a little concern there, because we've had this mutual side membership and we've had trading side. So I'm a bit concerned. I'm researching that.
Yeah.
But what about doing that? Well, yeah, but not everybody comes. So the more we start saying the reason you're paying X is because some of it goes to the show, to keep the show costs down, to keep the show going, then you could get pushback. Well, I don't go to the show. I don't go every year. Why am I? And so on. So the answer would be, in the same way you opt out of a hard copy of the magazine, everybody would be no longer getting into the show, but you reduce the membership and then they pay. But this was actually something that was put forward by a member. The problem there is, okay, fine. So now we've got to sell 4,000 tickets. And that means I've got to pay 12 grand to sell them. So I'm not getting all the money that's coming from them. Do you see what I mean?
Why is it so expensive, that company, to pay?
It's Telford's own system. That is about par for the course, because start to have a conversation with a company that just does that. And once you start looking at that, you need to have the mechanisms to then scan it all at entry. You've got to have the IT infrastructure. So that's all dealt with. So it's an all-inclusive £3. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So one point was, well, hey, hang on a minute, couldn't we do that? Well, you need a website. Okay, they don't come free. Yeah. Then you've got to have it hosted somewhere. That doesn't come free. Then you're going to need the equipment and manpower, and it can't be a couple of volunteers who might pop in for a couple of hours. This is going to be a bank of people processing. Yeah. Because at the moment, all the members, you all stand there and someone quickly runs up and down and you flash whatever colour of the day is, or colour of the year, sorry, on your card. That's all they need to see. And they give you a bracelet. Bingo, 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 done. Okay. So once we start into the scanning thing, you have to have a scanner, and has it gone through, and etc. etc. It's not reading and what have you. So you got to cater for all that, because one glitch on the front door, it's like a motorway. You know, it only takes one car and it comes to a standstill, isn't it? Yeah. It's got to be slick. That particular bit. Yeah. Otherwise, you know, the worst case would be, I can just imagine someone who's a member still there at 1 minute past 10 when the public start to go in, and we haven't been able to scan them. Yeah. So this is all the. This is, how can I put it? Ideas are thrown out. But you have to take them apart and work out, if in practice we do this, how would we manage to do it? What are the implications and so on? Cost implications that you don't see. Yeah.
I think you're being very polite, John. It's okay to say not all ideas are good ideas.
Yeah.
I know that's a common thing said in a lot of meetings, but we all know it's not true.
Well, I've sat in meetings. You know, I did a lot of charity work. You know, being a trustee. And there was always the 5 responses. What's it going to cost us? You know, what is the benefit? What is it replacing? You know, you go through the whole list of these 5 questions. Is it Janet and John? You know, that was the best one. You know, do you remember when you were at school?
Yeah.
You know, you used to use Janet and John as your reading books, wasn't it? Simplicity. That's what we meant. How Janet and John is it? We used to say, how simple is it? That's all we want. You know. Well, it's going to be. No, we'll move on. We'll stick to what we know, because you know, change. I think because I think the frustrations a lot of us have, and I don't know whether you feel the same, John. Changes in IPMS is so slow, but I presume that is because that's committee with village hall committee stuff, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? In that respect, not being disrespectful. I'm just saying that when you have, you know, a group, you know, like I say, the more voices you have, the harder it is to change, if you see what I mean.
There is one aspect to that. Bear in mind that the committee works on a majority vote process. So it's not that we have to have 10, that you have to have unanimity amongst all of the committee members. All right. So it's a normal board process. Once we've voted on it, all of us have to support it, period. Yeah. That's one of those things of collective responsibility. The other thing you've got to remember is that, let me think, is it the majority? I think the majority of the committee are, is it all? Yeah, I think it's still the majority are in full-time jobs. We aren't, I'm retired. I'm retired. Yeah. I used to have a full-time job doing all the jobs my wife tells me I've got to do.
That's why you're not modelling. It's not IPMS, it's the wife.
In the spray booth behind, there's a coffee holder that apparently is more important to be fixed than me to be doing the model. But but yeah. So getting something done. We can't keep meeting like if you were in a work environment like this, you might have a meeting every week.
Yeah.
If you were trying to get a change like this through, and within a few months, you might have thrashed it out, implemented, and so on and so forth. So it's not that we prevaricate, etc. A lot of it is the fact that we have meetings X number of weeks apart. In between, we have to go. Well, yeah, we do. We go off and live our normal lives and so on. And we do some of the work that we have to do in between. And some of our committee members are in their own lives. You know, the fact that they're still doing the job is well done to them because they've got quite a lot on in other areas. Yeah. I mean, Andy, you realise he's a wing commander.
Yeah.
He's active service wing commander. He's based out in Belgium. And yet he fits in, you know, manages to fit in, doing all this. Sometimes he hurtles back through the tunnel to come to when we don't have many physical meets now. I mean, that COVID flushed that out. And then we started to realise, like a lot of organisations, you don't really need to be in a room every single time, although occasionally you do, just to keep that cohesion, you know. So we're not a bunch of old fuddy duddies think, oh no, change, oh never, and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's just trying to get these things done. It has to be fitted into our normal lives. You know,
at what state does a job on IPMS? Because honestly, you volunteers, you don't get paid. You may get a meal at Scam or the World, but that's basically it. You get expenses, I guess. But at what point does a job become a paid role? You know, it's like the website. The website definitely needs a lot of work doing to it. Would it be not worth, especially with the magazine, and the amount of money you spend on the magazine, whether to pay an outside company to do that for you and have a proper website that inhabits the magazine, as you know, like for instance, I want to buy your scale ruler. Okay, I've been to model shows, IPMS aren't there, can't get it. I can get the scraper tools and stuff by sending in a check, but you only sell the ruler, the scale ruler, at a model show. Having a website that's been developed, everything, buy it, ship to me, done. Do you know what I mean? At what point in a job role is it going to be better if you just got paid somebody to do it? That's what I'm trying to get at, John. You know, website's a big thing, right? I'm not saying that website can't be done by one person, you know.
Okay, so everything is done at the moment by volunteers. So the website, our webmaster Pete, he's on the committee. He's got background in IT, etc. We have discussed, is there a point where maybe we have to pay someone to do it? I mean, it's only a small, relatively in time-wise, it's a small thing, but we pay accountants to prepare our corporation tax. That's historical. I haven't changed that. I've continued to use them. The question of whether the treasurer's position, given it's quite pivotal in keeping the company going, should the treasurer's position be, I don't know, find a retired accountant, for example, who wants some, you know, extra money, because it's not a full-time job for sure. Okay, so yes, it could be the kind of role. But having said that, you know, you're only lucky if you get change out of 30k. And our total turnover, including membership, is 250. And you've seen the profit levels, which on the show are negligible now. You've seen on the membership, we do generate a surplus. We do. But that would chew it up like that. Yeah. Asking someone to do anything other than dig a hole in the ground. Sorry, hopefully none of you are that's your occupation. But to do something that has a technical content, should we say, of some kind. Take the web, you know, how much, I don't know, maybe Alex, I don't know, given what you've done in the past, you want a website put together, how much?
Ask Moss. Oh, I'm trying to get the
mine was mine.
He's just developed one.
Yeah, I did the Outlaw Paints website, but I did mine's off the shelf. Mine's being developed through a company. And I think Auto with everything including up in, and they actually put the product. We gave them the spreadsheet. They did the product, everything. We didn't get much shy from about £3,000, I think, altogether. But but then they've done it all, so we're compliant, because we're selling online. We're compliant with every single compliance that we needed to. The red tape for selling a product online, and we're not using Squarespace or Wix. This is off the shelf. This is off the shelf. It's but yeah, it was a long haul, and it was done in about 6 weeks. But we basically told them what we wanted. They came back after 2 and said, "This is what we're looking at." We said, "Yeah, we love it. Go for it." And then 4 weeks later, we had almost a working website with all the payments, legal, sign up. With the only thing we didn't do was PayPal, because they just rip off merchants. So we've got a nice Stripe or whatever it was, the payment platform.
That's what we use, Stripe.
Yeah. But we got a decent payment platform that charges very little on fees. So yeah, I think it's like 20 pence per transaction, but the actual percentage is like less than 1%. Whereas Wix and everything will be 3 or 4%. PayPal 5% even. But we left it. We wanted it. We just left it to them. I'm not a coder. I've built websites in the past. But when it come to everything that I needed with all the regulations and stuff and banks and everything, I gave it to professional. I didn't even want to deal with it. I still get it now. You've got to sign in and say, "Are you with this sort of charter and stuff like that?" And I'd give it to my web guys, and they get on and do it. So, and that costs us, about £55 a month every month now. But that includes if the site goes down, they get it back up again for us. So we're covered that way. But the initial outlay was quite expensive. Yeah.
Going back to where we started on this, which was you wanted to buy the ruler.
Yeah.
So the merchandise side was covered by John Tapsell, who was publicity.
Yeah.
But there wasn't really a merchandise position, let's call it. And John developed the connections for ordering and so on and so forth. Now, when John stood down, there wasn't anybody came forward. Now, Mark Sanderson he was co-opted, and now because he was co-opted because no one stood, he's now standing. I think it's next election he's standing to get basically formalised. But Mark is quite clear. He's quite happy dealing with all the social media side, which John Tapsell did very well. When things started to, it can happen on social media. Things start to mushroom, and if you don't kill it fast, answer it quick, before you know it, it's halfway around the world and back, kind of thing. And John was really good at keeping that, not trying to suppress it and stop discussion, but just answering it quickly, because people will come up with an idea or whatever. And Mark's following that, and Mark is getting very good into trying to promote us in social media, make effectively the advertising side, which is what his role is, it's publicity. But Mark has made it quite clear he doesn't really see himself as someone that negotiates supply contracts for more files or the mugs and all this kind of stuff, which Alfie Bass, who's gone out, generally you might see around the shows, has been selling, but that's the stocks of that are running down. So, and there has been an issue. It says in the magazine, go on the website to buy yourself a seam scraper, but you can't go on the website because it's disabled.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of part of it, isn't it? Again, I would come back to my previous point. If you raise I tell you what, John, if you raise all these points in the committee meeting, we'll lobby you for being paid as a treasurer position. Although I don't think that's very compliant. But it is, what is it for? And if the society isn't, if you're selling something for the members, but the members can't access it, that's not serving the members. So that really goes outside of what the society is for. So that it becomes really, that should be fixed. And I'm sorry, but for me, the time that the IPMS should have started paying or should pay for the website was about 2005.
Yeah.
It is way, way behind.
It is a lot of love and cherish, I tell you. It's
It just needs. You just need to think. We're going to spend £5,000 and just hand it over. This is what we want. This is all a list of requirements. Do that in a committee meeting. Hand it off to somebody, and your webmaster is the guy that negotiates that with the people. I think that's as simple as you get. You know.
And then the webmaster then comes up and adds the articles, adds the magazine, adds, you know, and makes sure that when stuff gets bought through, you know, in theory, there's nothing stopping you setting up. You know, it was £35 a month, plus you have your transaction charges and everything. You can get a decent website that will do all your payments for you, so that if somebody does order some merch, even if you don't want to do that, you know, PayPal give you the option of picture up. You can sell a product on PayPal now, and then all you got to do is fulfill the order. It sends you, even gives you the option of buying the postage.
Sore point. Sorry, we don't deal with PayPal.
Yeah, I know.
We've got nearly £5,000 locked in accounts with them that we can't get out.
Really?
Yes.
I mean,
wow.
Yeah, I mean, PayPal are interesting, but I mean, I use.
Sorry, hang on a minute, Alex. You're being polite now.
I mean, so I have a website for the store. Obviously, you have to. It's minimum requirement. That costs me about £400 something a year in terms of I use Shopify. So again, that is me doing it myself, but it's from it's not preformed templates, but it gives you structure, and it handles all the e-commerce. It's also a stock system as well, so it's for a sole trader. It's convenient. I'd love to be able to spend £4,000 to get a bespoke one, but I'm not quite at that stage yet. So you know, if you have somebody dedicated to doing it, it's possible to do it for cheaper. But I think with something so pivotal and so important, again, it comes to that question of, well, what is the society for? What are we actually prepared? You know, how are we gearing for the future? And is £5,000 really a lot of money when you think about the society over the next, you know, 10 years even? You know, and the maintenance of that. Once you've got something that you're happy with, keeping that up isn't a lot. You know, even for e-commerce, you know, like Moss said, it's like 40, 50 quid a month. You know, to keep it all ticking over nicely.
Can I just make a suggestion, Martin? We've gone through various points. If you could, I've been taking notes. Sorry, but if because you might have a regroup on these subjects as your group. If you drop me, you got my email, so drop me an email with the points, a summary of the points. I will raise these in committee, and our next committee meeting is not until late Feb. Unfortunately, as we touched on earlier, things don't move that fast. And after, I'll raise them, and I'm quite happy to come back if you want, or just give you a written response on what the position on those points are.
The committee could easily watch his video, you know, get a cup of tea, get a model out, and just listen to what's being said. And I think that's what Andy was saying, that that when he originally came on last year, you know, the year before, a lot of the committee listened to what Andy was saying. It was very good. It brought out a lot of points that were raised. And I say I'm not dissing the webmaster now. Like I said, everything's all legacy when it comes to IPMS. Everybody's following on from the person before, so he's got a lot of work to do. And I feel that the website and an online presence, since even more so since COVID, it proved that there was a lack of it from IPMS, this online presence, and in like social media as well. We've had a question tonight. What is the community's way of asserting itself against modern social media? Is what the question was. YouTube, Facebook, etc.
Against.
What is the community's way of asserting itself?
Yeah, I'm reading it. I'm not quite sure what they mean by against modern social.
I think what they say is, you know, with IPMS online, you know, what are they doing to be more active and more promoting and be more proactive?
Well, can I suggest Mark is your man on this very point. Okay, and in fact, he's probably the man on the website itself, because I think he's given his opinion on. He works I'm not exactly sure. He works in the industry of associated with that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he's I think his view was, it's a bit fuddy-duddy, should we say?
Yeah.
I mean, with the best will in the world, I mean, obviously, I don't know Mark, I don't know his background.
Yeah.
He could be the greatest IT guy in the world. It's still too much for one person.
Oh, I wouldn't envisage that he did. What I meant is, as a driver for getting it done.
No. I'm just saying, in terms of generally the arguments within or discussions, let's call them, within the IPMS about for and against, having an external site is, well, we've got a webmaster. It's like, but he could be Einstein. He wouldn't be able to maintain the website in a way that would compete, that would make it relevant enough, let's say, for I would say the last 3 generations of modelers. So it's because it's just too much. You look at any company out there which is of I mean, how big is the committee on the IPMS?
10. I think it's 10. Yeah.
Okay. Any small company with 10 directors or 10, kind of employees, none of them have the kind of reach, of dedicated subscribers, 4,500, 5,000, whatever it is. None of them would dedicate one part-time person to web stuff. They would have, I mean, how big is Airfix, Moss? The Airfix team? About 15?
15, 16, isn't it? Yeah. They shrunk a little bit,
Yeah. So, but broadly not massively different. But I mean, they've got somebody just for social media.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that it's a part-time guy doing their website. It's not, obviously. It's it's a part of the group, obviously. But so it's, again, and why do companies invest? Because they have to, because this is the way that you communicate with the world. It's your main vassal. And you talk about the main way of communicating with your members. Yes, there is one way of doing it through paper media to ensure that you get to everybody, but you don't get to everybody. That's a nonsense argument. And I don't mean it against you. I just mean you're only communicating with those people who actually read the magazine, which I'm guessing from what we've spoken here, what you said, is not necessarily a minority, but say it's half of your membership. That means you're only communicating with half of your membership, actually, not all of them. You're getting the message out to them, but you could say the same as a website, right? And I'm guessing that more than 50% would actually look at a website. So again, it's such an important thing. I think, again, having 10% of your committee dedicated to it is on the light side, I would say.
Yeah. Everything can be done. And also, if you have a bastion of people willing to add articles to the website, it's on the website I've got admin, moderator, editor, so if somebody wanted to write an article about something that they've done with an outlaw paint, I could give them an editor thing. They can design the page themselves, and then boom, they put it live. It goes through the admin first. Boom, it goes live, and you've got some sort of like a blog on there, like a blog post. But yeah, it's I don't know.
Even look at our channels, John. And I mean, my channel's been going for what, 2.5 years. And I've got a Discord group. I have moderators in that because it's too much to do by myself. And I don't have 4,000 paid members. God, I wish.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's just I think perhaps some of the committee are, and I mean, obviously you've said you kind of see the importance of a lot of these things, but I think some of the committee obviously don't see the value, how important a website is, and just see it as, oh, you need a website, you need to do this. When after the IPMS Nationals this year, because I was trading, I didn't get a chance to look at the competition at all. So I went on shortly after, when I was doing my video, to see who won. And I couldn't find it. It took me ages to find who the actual winner of the competition was. Now, that's on your own website, which is astonishing, right? Not that it wasn't there. It's just so difficult to find. And so it wasn't called the winner. It was, I can't remember the category names and stuff.
But it was, but overall, wasn't it?
It wasn't even best in show. It was like, I can't remember the terminology, but
you're talking about the Vickers Vimy.
Yes. And there was no big. What I would expect, okay, as a naive person coming on to the IPMS website after nationals, would be a picture of every entry and who won, or at least the golds, and stuff. Again, from a naive, not understanding, what it takes to actually photograph every single one, label it, and put it on the website and stuff, which I know is a huge amount of work. At Moss, you know how much bloody work it is to get one product on a website.
Yeah.
But that's what people expect because they see it everywhere else, and they don't appreciate that. You go onto Airfix's website and it all looks nice. It still has errors, but it's got a team of people working on it, and it's been paid for and all that. But that sets the standard. It's a bit like when Amazon started doing 24-hour delivery. We had a discussion when I was working for a big scientific company. We were delivering instruments that were about a value of about £40,000 to £80,000 each, right? And we charged for delivery about £300 to £400 for one of those machines. And our customers were saying, well, why does it take 3 weeks for us to get this? And then sometimes your delivery guys will turn up in a white van, unmarked, and they won't even bring it into the building. But Amazon, I can order something, it comes the next day, and it costs 20 quid. And that's the thing. It's completely non-comparable, but because people have that standard in their mind, that's what they do. So fair or unfair, that's the way that the world is now. And I think maybe some of those harsh realities need to be brought in a more blunt way, I say.
Let me answer that. Before I answer that, I've got a thing flashed up here from Dan Usher. And he's made a comment that our site is slightly easier to navigate than Hannah. So I don't think it's a high benchmark to meet, actually.
No, it's not.
That's one of the worst, most backhanded compliments.
But thank you for the comment. Can I just say thank you, Dan? I think when we start talking about, where is the website that catches your eye and is oh God, what's it? There was an awful advert on the TV where this woman miraculously occurred. She was in purple and she had a German accent and just flashily turns there. It was an e-bike business website. It was a disaster.
Yeah,
I think some of you may have seen it, etc. and so on. And I suppose there's a bit here which comes into who is this website aimed at, you see. So in that instance, you know what they're trying to do? They're trying to get people that have never had an e-bike before and sell them an e-bike.
Yeah. And
when you come to IPMS, so there is a counter argument in IPMS, which is, well, we've got all our members. Well, okay, I did say I'd agree with that, Alex. You're nodding your head. But what I'm trying to get, what is our objective? Is it that we want 10,000 members? Because, that's never been discussed. We've never had a discussion, which is, have we got a target to convert, the entire United Kingdom to members? That'd be a bit OTT, I know. But
yeah.
Well, I would say on the counter point of that, John, why? Why would that be? Because for me, it's exactly that, right? It is that question, and I had a video exactly on this, is what is the IPMS for?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure the committee has really asked itself that in a really soul-searching way.
It is written up, and that is in the...
I know it's written, but something being written is not...
hang on a minute. It's for basically spreading the word. It's about increasing the fulfillment and enjoyment of a hobby, which it happens to be rooted in sticking plastic models aeroplanes together, but obviously has grown out of that area, etc. So, God, I can remember when it wasn't made out of polystyrene, it was almost disqualified once. But so that there is that in its should we say its mission, if we've done the old mission statement and then the objectives and so on. But and one area that crops up is youth, which is really, really difficult. We get this at the AGM. Have you ever been to the AGM? And you no, okay.
You know what? Right, that would be perfect to broadcast as a Zoom to everyone, so we could see it.
That has been mooted. Going back to my other society, Cross and Cockade, theirs is always done as a Zoom now. They've realised you can do it, and they do it. Yeah. That has been mooted, Moz. But at the AGM, invariably someone asks and says, look, what are we doing about youth? Because it's patently obvious when you go to the show, we are very much a silver-haired bunch. Yeah. You know, you see there are some brilliant young modelers, but they are by far the minority, and invariably they're the son or the daughter of an existing member. They're a family member. Okay. And the difficulty you have there is the minute you start talking about the branches trying to encourage that is the old thing about having to have BSS checks, you know, dealing with young people, everything, the nightmare that all the Cubs and the scout leaders and all this lot go through in being allowed to be in the same room as a child that isn't theirs, basically. Yeah. And that's a real blocker in trying to overcome it. Maybe we do need to address it and we need to work it. But it has always been just, we've talked round that is a major issue. That is where I think the website would be the appeal, because that's where, and we've already talked about the IT bit, and are we people that are IT literate? What young person would look for something on W.H. Smith's magazine stand? A really young person. They won't go and browse in the magazine. They'll probably go online and look for it. If it hasn't cropped up in their social media feed, which is where they will get bright ideas of what to do, and because they're getting bombarded ones about the next game. That's what they constantly see.
I mean, one of the things you mentioned in all of that, John, which I think it bears mentioning, is you mentioned, you know, there was an advert on TV. Most millennials and Gen Z don't even watch TV.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure the committee recognise that, but that is a stark fact. In fact, most Gen Xers now don't watch terrestrial TV. Most people, the viewership of YouTube as a medium, so not just like, you know, for going and getting odd bits, but as your main platform, it's usually streaming services. It's Amazon Prime, it's Netflix, it's, you know, Hulu, Disney Plus, whatever, and YouTube.
Yeah.
So if you're not addressing a digital or a digitally enabled generation or set of people, you are not appealing to anybody. And I don't think I have a bit of an issue with the younger modelers thing. Younger, I think, in your context, is referring to people younger than us. I see the majority of people coming into the hobby as, I would call them, new or returning modelers. I don't think you're capturing the 30-somethings, the 40-somethings, the people who are coming back after having children or after getting a decent amount of income, who are internet savvy. They know about money, but they don't know necessarily about the techniques and stuff. And they go to YouTube for those kinds of things. They go to the internet, and the IPMS doesn't come up as a thing. And a lot of people that I speak to, like this last year, was the first time people have been to the IPMS show, and they found out about it through Moss, through John Alex, through myself, through YouTubers. You know, what is the IPMS doing to engage creators? You know, people like Night Shift, like Plasmo. You know, Plasmo was at the IPMS, but he didn't make himself public, you know. But that's how you bring in people who are, you know, current, like up and comings, and, you know, that's the kind of people that they're looking at. They're not looking at the Vallejos of yesteryear and stuff. They know Vallejo as a company. You know, the same as Mig Jimenez. They know him as, you know, part of the MiG ammo stuff. They don't know him as a modeler so much. Yeah. So, you know, again, it's just a completely different perspective. And I think that question of why, I mean, I've done lots of mission statement stuff in the past. And actually, we did an exercise. I don't know if you know the works of Patrick Lencioni. And apologies, everybody, we're going to kind of business speak. There's something called the 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, which is well worth every committee member reading. And this talks about it. But your mission statement is your high level thing, right? And it's too high. That is the kind of thing, you know, we had one in Thurman. I can't even remember what it was because it was so airy fairy. It was like about bringing science to the world and stuff. It doesn't really tell you anything. So as a leadership team, we actually went in like, what is our team, the genetics division? What are we for? And it goes through a bunch of exercises. It's just like who you are, what we do, what we're trying to achieve. What do we do every day to do that? And that gets into a set of behaviors. And that's the kind of thing that, you know, it then flows through all of your stuff. And that's what comes through in your website, the enthusiasm, the wanting to instruct, the welcoming aspect, all of those sorts of things. that make people want to join. Because, and I'm sorry I'm going on for a bit. I'll promise I'll finish shortly. The thing is, world membership is very much a thing of yesteryear, I'll call it, of like the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, not so much the noughties and the 10s and the 20s. You know, I remember my son talking about his friendship group, and I'm just like, what the fuck is that? It's just like, we used to call it me mates. But it's a different perspective of looking at things. And I think if we as modelers, generally as creators and, you know, membership members and everything, don't look at how other people are looking at stuff and just think, you know, in the way that we are looking, it's like, oh, we've got to appeal to kids. Because when I was a lad, I used to go and see that, you know, the plastic bagged Airfix kits. Yeah, that doesn't happen anymore. Those kits aren't there. There's no point trying to appeal to that. You've got to look at, you know, how do we bring people back into the hobby after, you know, they've been at it a while. Games Workshop is a really good example of how to do that, right? They've got a different model. They've got a game and stuff. But they've hit the nail on the head. They capture young teens who are interested in the game, and then they capture returning guys when they've got a career in usually accountancy, IT, you know, other high-paid indoor jobs, as we all tend to do. And then they get a ton of money off them, you know. And Warhammer membership is massive. It's absolutely huge. And if IPMS could capture, you know, 1 to 5% of that, it would swell the ranks massively. And why not go for every modeler? Every modeler could benefit. You know, it is, you know, we're all talking together here. We all enjoy these spaces and hangouts, and, you know, everybody streams, we all appear on them, because it is like going to a model club. Online, you know, a website doesn't have to pass any stuff to get a 15-year-old interested in something, you know. There are other strictures and stuff. You know, of course, I know all about that from the shop, but I just think maybe the IPMS needs to have that, you know, real grassroots kind of discussion and examination of, you know, what are we for today? What are we trying to do? How do we achieve it? You know, back to basics kind of thing.
I think it's
you can have a drink now, Alex. 7 minutes. 7 minutes there, John. You could pick bits of that out, but at the end of the day, how are we going to bring people into scale modeling? I think it was that. I think
tomorrow the world. I think all your points are extremely valid. I think for me, this has been this is not my field. I'll be honest, it's not my field. I've never really got into web and all that kind of stuff. Okay, I use it all the time, like we're talking about. And the minute I want to find out something, I Google it and I get loads and loads of pictures. But the whole social thing, media stuff, etc. You know, I touch Facebook once a flood. We use WhatsApp in our close family. Yeah, that's about it. You know, to be honest with you. So this is not a field I could actually push forward. Mark is the person that is taking this forward, and I think it would be worth. He might actually be watching this, and he's probably groaning and thinking, "Oh God, no, he's not going to say I should go on it." But Mark would be the man actually on this front, because he has already picked up this mantle to some extent more than John. John Tapsell's took a very, let's say, a passive approach to it. Yeah, he was a responder when things occurred. He wasn't a generator. And I think Mark has got more in his agenda about becoming a generator, not just a passive responder. Yeah.
As I said, I see it all the time about this argument of we need to get the kids in. I don't buy it. We need to rescue the men who end up playing golf. That's the ones we need to aim for. Those who go off and play golf or fish or something like that, we need to grab them and say, no, you want to stay at home and build a scale model and get high on timing extra thin. That's what we need to do. And then
they will appeal to their own kids.
And then they will appear, the kids will come in. You know, my son's 19. I didn't see him for a very long time in his life. And he asked me, you know, my sort of hobbies. I said, well, I build scale models. Showed him some pictures. And he all of a sudden he said, you know what, one day I'd like to have a go at that. Well, I've got a stash of starter sets here, mate. You come whenever you want, mate. You know, we'll start you on. And to be fair, a lot of the starter sets aren't, I don't believe, aimed at kids anyway. Do you honestly think that Airfix released these sports cars for kids? No. They're for the adults. That's what they're. I think they did a brilliant. People say nobody wants to build a Spitfire. They do, because people want to. When they're adults, the appeal's there to build it like Eurofighter. Or the Lightning. The Lightning 2. Those starter sets are not generally aimed at kids. I can see the appeal with some kids for the sports cars, but I think it's the adults that build a Bugatti, for instance, in a starter set. There's no brainer.
I know for a fact that Mark is particularly strong on something other than planes, tanks, and ships.
Yeah.
He very much wants to push out that it's Gundam, it's sci-fi, it's Star Wars, etc., which is the subject matter that young people now follow. Where when I was a kid, I was told by my dad to follow Spitfires, kind of thing, etc. And then that's engendered into me now, obviously. And I mean, the first book my grandfather bought me was Biggles of 266. I mean, which then generated a lifelong interest in First World War kind of thing. But that there isn't that thing to generate that natural interest in those period things. And because when you go to the show, let's face it, the bulk of the stuff you're seeing is typically Second World War or modern wars. Which of course is not PC these days. No. To encourage young people interest into wars, etc., and so on. But apparently, you can watch as much violence as you like in Star Wars.
We had this debate last week. We cannot put. I got a strike on YouTube, and for the next 90 days, I've noticed my viewership's gone down because of it.
Really?
I had a video, and it showed the decal sheet and the box art, and it had a swastika in the picture.
Oh.
So I got a warning for that. Okay, but then I can go on YouTube and see people killing on Grand Theft Auto a woman and burying them with concrete in a game, and that's part of the mission, to bury somebody in concrete. And they're saying, what's wholesome about that on YouTube? I've got a video where, you're telling me that I can't show this plane and it's accurate to have the swastika on it. Are we trying to erase history here? It is a minefield, but then,
Are you aware of Wingnut Wings? The Fokker D7, they did a special edition, which is Hermann Goering's, all white. And someone put it up, and they got a strike because the name Hermann Goering.
It's so silly. It's just totally stupid.
And also, Markev's correct. There's a lot of World War II video games out there where you can fly a Spitfire, where you can, was it War Thunder? You got World of Tanks. There's a lot of games out there now, and that's why I think the 156 market will be good for the tanks. You know what I mean, etc. So, but at the end of the day, I think the mission statement of IPMS is a valid one. I've read it to the furtherance of scale modeling and stuff. I'm a proud member of it, and I've always, for me, it's not about scale model world, because I didn't go to scale model for 3 or 4 years, but I was still a member, just for the fact that I got the magazine. That there are things that are good, like the coverage of insurance if you go into model shows. There are other benefits out there, but I think the biggest shock for us all is that the money was basically being spent on this magazine, and I think there's 101 other things you could spend the money on that I give you, including pay your tax. You know what I mean? In the magazine. So
these numbers you can find in the AGM booklet, so they're not top secret. They will be. Sorry, they will be in the AGM booklet. They're not in it currently because it's current year. But for 24, the net takings in membership were 124,000.
Yeah.
Now, some of that is used to pay for the membership system, which you go in to renew on, hosting and so on. So full software licenses and whatever. I know it's 1,000, something like that. Then the bulk of it is basically paying for the magazine, and that takes out 75,000.
And that's the postage as well. It's magazine and postage, isn't it? It's a hell of a chunk.
It's 75k, and then after I have to do a fancy computation, we ended up paying 14k in back.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know. Because memberships are subject to that, but we can. It's complicated how I do it. I'm not going to even try and tell you because it's something I had to go through recently in getting it redone. But fundamentally, we're allowed to factor in the fact the magazine has a literary value and therefore is 0 rated.
Yeah.
So as we're giving you the magazine, and that's part of what you paid for, we can play a thing of carving up what you've given us and saying something's not subject, etc. So this year we're paying about 14k, and that is effectively the membership side. So there is a surplus, annual surplus starting to come in on the membership side that could be used to exploit or in some way expand the exposure and so on. One of the comments one of the things we noted in one of the other meetings recently was this: we advertise the show, but we advertise it in the modelling magazines. And I think if someone's reading one of the modelling magazines, they probably know all about scale model work because it turns up every year. It's where, because my point was, where's the poster that's out on a bus stop kind of advertising, and we don't do any of that. So that's something I think we've got to think about. Now, I don't know how long you carry on this.
We're nearly at the end now, mate. We normally go on to about 10 o'clock, but obviously, like I said, if you want to leave, you can do. If you had another
I do. Sorry, I don't particularly want to leave, but I've got a few things to do. But there is one question still outstanding, which is from Alex, and it was about the cost model for traders, right? So your observations are absolutely right. First of all, when you talked about, well, hang on, if you've got so many tables and whatever, and it's so much and so on, you're absolutely right. Now, a bit of history. I think I touched on this earlier on. When I kind of took over, and then they said to me, well, we need to decide the prices. And the previously it had been, well, we'll add a tenner or whatever it is, etc., here, there, and everywhere. I said, well, hang on a minute. This should be done on what is the value that they're getting. So if someone's paying X, what's that value? What value is it they're getting? And what's the unit of measure that you then calculate the price on? Okay. So I mean, a simple one is, if one of them costs £2 and you want 5, then it's going to be a tenner. Very crude that. But I said, well, what is the unit of measure? So I had to come up with a unit of measure, and the unit of measure is frontage. So what length have you got facing the public? Because, you go and rent a shop and you pay for the width of the frontage. That's the big thing. So I said, well, okay, we'll calculate the lengths. So if you said 7 tables, that's one of the bigger pitches, it's so many feet. Yours, Alex, was 6 because you took 1 table. Yep, 1 table. So you had a 6-foot frontage. Then it gets a little bit more complicated because you've got corner pitches. You might have noticed some. So there are 2 table corner pitches. And so at first that looks very good. But of course, if you ever go past one of those, it's a bit pokey for the bloke that's in that corner if he's got a lot of gear. It's okay if you're selling figures, about this high, because you can probably get all of it on the table and maybe a few boxes underneath, maybe. But if you're starting to sell full-scale Airfix kits, I mean, how do you think we'd manage to pack into that? So the other valuation was, have you got space at the back? So you were back to a wall, Alex, yeah? And the majority of people are, because it's only at the ends of the aisles that there are the guys with the corners. So I said, well, okay, they have frontage length, but they don't have as much space. So after that, I decided there would be a discount on a corner pitch versus what it would be if it was a straight pitch, because they've got more working space behind them. All right. So after that, I then, based on the typical trader profile of each of the pitches, one of the most popular ones is the two table corner pitch. About 20 of those. Okay, one full scale 7. Do you see what I mean? So that's the profile of all the different pitches and their numbers. That gave me a total length, right? And then said, right, divide that into what we had to pay for the holes, gave me a cost per foot. And then that's applied to each of the pitches. Now, having done that, though, one of the things that traditionally has always been done in the pricing is to pitch it in a kind of, not a linear, but actually a curve going up in terms of increasing price. So in fact, your first observation is the fact that someone pays so much for 2 tables and someone pays so much for 4, it will not be double, it will be more. All right, so the bigger the pitch, the higher the price per foot. And that is because we work on what I call the high street versus the supermarket. And that is, we want to keep the high street. The high street is the guys, the smaller guys, and you must have walked around and seen them. These are guys that actually have got a day job, and they may craft, and I'll use figurines as an example. They craft these figurines, and we don't want them to get pushed out. So we try to give them, it's a bit like special rates are given to small shops by certain councils, on the high street, to try and keep the high street. So there's actually a curve. So first of all, after what I just described, that I worked out the total length, worked out a cost per foot, then plugged all that in, and then applied a slightly increasing percentage to the cost. So to get the actual price scale. Now, having done that, we had to compare it against what we've done before. And what it highlighted was the irregularities in the old scale. Now, we couldn't convert to the new one overnight, because in some cases the changes were quite significant. So after that, I had to moderate it. And we're using a bit of what I call, the government calls it, well, the government don't like referring to it, but it's fiscal drag. So in other words, where people are effectively not paying enough, then as each year goes by, we will inch it up to come into line. And where people have been overpaying effectively, according to this model, then we will freeze it. In some cases, we actually dropped it down a little bit, and gradually through that, we're get it to align to the model. Now, that's why when I think you looked at a 7 table and it cost so much, and you looked at a 2 or something like that.
I looked at them all, and there was no sense that could be made of it.
No. If you do, you're absolutely right. If you do your exercise, you're absolutely right. But that's because I couldn't change the whole thing in one go, because some of the changes will be very significant. So we're using fiscal drag to gradually, over the next few years, bring it into line such that it's equitable to everyone, and according to our principle of trying to give benefit to the smaller trader at the bottom end. In fact, we help, for example, the anchor was the single table didn't change price in the last year. Yeah. Others have gone up a bit, and those are the ones that are basically according to the formula. It turned out that because of the old way of doing it, it drifted out that they were they were getting a bloody good deal if they want to complain about any increases. And that's why. So if you come back to me in maybe 3 years' time, it might make a bit of sense.
But yeah, with everything else,
I'll
keep doing the
then, Alex.
I'm sorry, it's complicated. I've done the best to try and explain it. Sorry, Moz.
Just saying, yeah, it's good. The information's out there now, and people can come back and watch us. They say, "Oh, what was the reason for that?" Then it's there in black and white. That people can watch it, and I think that's what's been the benefit. And we've been glad to have IPMS on, to go through their roles. I think people are getting a bit sick of it now because we've had, IPMS.
Yeah. I absolutely. You really want to talk about sticking models together, don't you?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, though, is that we felt that we needed to be done because the last 2 years, we see what's being said in the chat when we talk about IPMS, but you've actually, all of you have come on, and I think when I spoke, is it Dave Berryman,
Yes.
the editor, he said to it, he goes, we just haven't got the people. We just, and I often thought, do I jump on the committee? But unfortunately, with the businesses I've got at the moment and the new one, I just haven't got the time of day. But 10 years, 15 years down the line, when I've made me millions and I'm happy, you may see me put my name forward on the, because I think the IPMS, there is a place for the IPMS in a scale model, on a scale, and you talk to people and they, I've joined because of Scale Model World. But when I go to scale model shows and I say, you're an IPMS member, no, why? And I go, well, are you insured for those models that you show in there then? You know what I mean? Those are the things you've got to think about. And that's why I do it. The benefit is not just the mag. I think as I said, I read the magazine. But again, I think in this one here, for instance, I think there's about 30 pages of bump, but there's 14 pages of really good stuff. That's finding that balance, isn't it? With the magazine. But that's another debate for another time. But
all the points that have been made about how we reach out, I think, are very valid. I think the points you've made is that you need to do it, you need to grow, and so on and so forth, are very valid. Because one of the things about this world is, if you stand still, you fall behind.
Yeah.
Because the world we live in now is the rate of change in it is incredible, absolutely incredible. When I think back, when I first started work, what work was like, and by the time I actually packed up, the rate of change in everything is just I've been out of the game for 2 years, and I know that I've fallen way behind in where the telecoms industry's moved to, etc. By talking to some ex-colleagues, there's no way I could go back in.
Yeah. One other thing is, I will say though, is that I think IPMS needs to be more recruitment as well for the committee. Like I said, you've got a committee of 10 people. There's nothing stopping you having working groups for certain areas. Have a working group for webmaster, have a working group for treasurer, have a working group, and then those 10 that are leading those groups then come back to the committee and say, this is what we discussed. So you've got more ways in recruiting more volunteers into it. You don't have to be committee, you don't have to be a director of a company or nothing, but they can be part of a working group that can meet once a month on a Zoom and develop. You've got 10 people working for the website side of it, or the web development, or social media, and that one guy is on the committee, but he operates on that working group. I think that might be a way forward. And I've thought about that. I've been on committees like that. Working groups are phenomenal because you can have people in that don't necessarily want to be on the committee and have the responsibility of being a trustee or a director, but they're working in that group under that on the committee. And maybe that's
a very good point. And I would say introducing digital would be a case in point where it would probably be better handled if we had that bigger committee meeting and we said, okay, we really want to take this forward. So which 3 of us are going to get together and maybe enlist by reaching out into build a working group, which then comes back to the committee. I think that would be a case in point. And then the website business, how who really needs to be involved, etc., and so on.
Under the guidance of a well-paid consultant.
Hey,
I'm renowned, Alex. I'm renowned in the meetings when they start talking about doing things and putting my head on the desk and saying, "Oh my God, you want to spend money again?"
I'll give you very unreasonable rates. Don't worry.
John, I would like to say thank you from all of us here on Airfix and Chill, with the chat and the panel, for giving up your 2 hours to talk about the treasurer's job. I know it's been I know people have said it'd be a little bit boring and stuff, but I think it's important. And you can look at this as a template for IPMS in the future, if they can, that maybe this is their way of reaching out. Maybe there are other channels out there. Obviously, you've got Gary stuff. People, to go out there and say, "Oh, do you mind us coming on and talking about IPMS?" Because they've got a set load of subscribers. Between us here, I think we've got about 60,000 subscribers between us here. I think, and if we have all of us on, there's 60,000 people that are subscribed to, not all to one channel, but amongst us. I think Alex, you're on 25. I'm on 24. There's 50. I know some of them over between us, but there's plenty of channels out there. Maybe IPMS can jump on there and talk about what they're doing. But I think the information's out there now. As I say, I do recommend that if you are a scale modeler and you do go to shows and show off your models, IPMS is a very good way of covering. Look at it as like a public liability insurance. That's what I look at it as. That it's worth worth its weight in gold. So
it's very cheap public liability insurance.
Yeah, very cheap. Yeah. And I wonder if IPMS committee meetings are as lively as Handsworth Parish Council meetings. Or if they put them on Zoom, it'd be interesting to watch, wouldn't it? But
quite a bit.
Are they as lively? No, I doubt it.
Yeah. But again, John, thank you so much for coming on.
That's quite all right, guys. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's very good to meet you all, and I can't say that. I don't know who all the other viewers are, but I would say thank you for bearing with it. I'm sorry some it's a bit boring, but hopefully I'll give you an insight that under the covers there's a lot of work that has to be done to kind of make the thing at the front look nice, etc. and work. All right.
I think the person was more because we're quite banterish on here. We kind of take the mick out of each other and stuff but I think sometimes we have to be serious and have the serious conversations, and this is one of them. But to be fair, what I'm seeing is we had over 210 people at one point watching this for a good while. So I think it's and it's there forever now. People can go and watch it and watch back.
Well, Mars, I just hope that me being on here hasn't pushed your viewing figures down even further than the swastika.
That's what we all hope.
No, because we decided not to take the piss out of Moss today because it's his birthday.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. I've had a great day. Thanks, John.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Well, there you are, folks. That was John from IPMS. Understand, they are difficult subjects to go on, and there's a lot of waffle from all sides, but we tried to answer the questions. I was expecting more from the chat, to be honest, for the questions. But money's money, innit? And people don't talk about money, do we? But it shows you now there's reasons, there's method behind the madness why the tables are all different prices at Scale Model World. But then, and £3 tax and payment. That's a lot of money in it, gentlemen. It's so the thing when you save all your money into your pensions and you get taxed on it, you're taxed twice. The government's the only way. They always say, you can only spend it once. Well, the government can at least grab it twice. You know what I mean? And that's it. It's piss poor, really.
They tax it again when you spend it.
Yeah, exactly. VAT is the biggest con in this country.
We talked about that last Friday.
VAT.
We were like, I ran out of fingers to count the way that our government taxes us. So.
Yeah, and it's not good.
And we got pissed about tea in Boston. We could have been great friends for a long time, but we're like, oh, those bastards. They're taxing us 2%. 2%.
I know. But IPMS, as I said, I'm a member. I'm a member for, as I said, two reasons mostly. One is because of the society I'm with, the club I'm with, need IPMS members. I enjoy going to model shows and being protected, and it is a free ticket into Scale Model World. And maybe I should write some articles for this. Maybe you'll see my articles in this. I do enjoy writing my articles. I've written a few the last couple of weeks. Maybe I'll start putting some stuff in here that you can all enjoy as well. But anyways,
I think we should say a big thank you as well, Moss, to you for spending your special 50th birthday with us.
50th? Cheeky bastard of 46.
No, 100th birthday it is because he missed out on his
I think that makes you a geezer now, right?
Yeah. It was great. I went
officially a geezer.
I went
he
to
is royalty, isn't he? And they do get 2 birthdays a year.
I'm not royalty. I'm not royalty, and I'm not a celebrity. I'm a bit of a dick, basically. I just enjoy scale modelling. So, here you go. First time tuning to your live streaming. By God, talk about being informative. Glad I joined in the watch. Thank you.
Right on, man.
We get really into it, don't we? Some nights we really do. We're just unfortunate that we've. There's plenty of. If you go back and have a look for Airfix and Chill, there's episode numbers between them all now, and you can see when IPMS have been on. We've had Dale on, we've had Luke from Revell on. We've had some we had Jonathan Mock at one point, didn't we? We need to get him back on again, Jonathan Mock. He was very good. And then we have a discussion and a debate, and we take the mic sometimes, and it's all good. We've come a long way. 118 episodes. We seem to have got ourselves a nice little format. So, cheeky bugger.
I thought I was being calm down playing it to 50 Moss.
I was born at the arse end of the 70s. I'm an 80s boy, really.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
You have a good day,
I was born before.
I went to Cosford.
2001 came out.
I went to Cosford and Sully took me round. Even
nice.
It was brilliant.
Nice.
It's definitely worth going.
So did Sully push your wheelchair?
No, he didn't. No.
No, they have those little motorised scooters you'd organise for.
Yeah.
You could hire them there. Those motorised scooters. Yeah. Do you know what? Right. In all fairness, that museum is disabled friendly everywhere. There's lifts and everything. Totally. Yeah, you could get around. The only thing that pissed me off was that one of my favourite airplanes is the Lightning, the E Lightning, and they've got it just up in the sky, vertical. I couldn't even go to sniff it and lick the metalwork. It was too far away. They got a MiG-15 on the ground. Piss off! Put the MiG-15 up in the air. Get the Lightning on the deck so we can caress it and play with it.
Yeah, but if they put the MiG up in the air, it'll fall apart.
Doesn't matter. You can stay up there. It's an incredible place. Cosford is an incredible museum.
Yeah, it's good.
Might go one day.
Bravo November's there as well in the corner.
Mm-hmm. Hey, so if you come on by train, there's a little cafe right when you get off. That cafe it's fantastic. So Joshy B, do you guys know who Joshy B is?
Yeah, I know Joshy B. Yeah.
Oh, he's a great guy. And so we were having dinner on Sunday night, and we're like, oh, we're going out to Cosford to meet Sully, and he's like, oh my God, there's this breakfast place or whatever. That's right there. And sure enough, so we took Uber. It was cheaper and quicker.
Did they have bacon butties, John?
No.
Oh, well.
It was too much. I would have been fine with a bacon buddy. But it was, no. So what threw us both off were the your beans are plain as all get out, and those tomato chunks. Terrible.
Anyways, right.
Okay.
I did get one gift. I did get one gift for my birthday, and it's the best gift ever. It's these things. You clip them on. They are absolutely fantastic. I've been doing it all. I'm like, oh yeah, this is brilliant, fantastic.
It's Buffalo Bill.
Oh, they're brilliant. You rub the lotion on the skin, but yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. These are.
And this little dog's renamed Precious.
35 quid. 35 quid they were from Amazon. But
you can have a pair in the toilet as well, Matt.
Yeah, when I'm reading your blog. Yeah. Anyways, it's 10. Thank you all for watching. A bit of a long one, but we're back to normal next week. We'll have a debate. Because we've got to go through a Tannery. We've got a Tannery has brought out a catalogue with some new stuff in. Who else has brought out stuff this week? Mini Art have brought out their catalogue as well, haven't they? So we'll talk about some of those other releases apart from Airfix ones.
Didn't Tamiya's catalog just come out last week?
Tamiya catalog, yeah, I haven't seen that one yet. It's not on like on nothing.
I haven't seen it either, but it just came out.
Yeah, but I'm trying to get hold of one now, but it's It's not available. But apparently, the rumor I've had from those in Japan who I speak to about it, I try to get. Normally, mine comes from Japan, you see, but they haven't got the English ones out there. There's not a lot in it. There's nothing new in it, really. It's basically 2024 with 2 extras. That's what I was told. So interesting.
There's no Bearcat then.
No Bearcat. No, that'll be Revell next year. That will.
You reckon?
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, folks, thanks for watching. We'll see you next week. Have a really good week. See you
See you
soon.
guys.
Cheers,
Bye.
then. Bye-bye. Bye.